I was testing out the latest and greatest of AI to use it for software development, and we recorded it so that people could see where it actually works well and where it does not, and get an idea about the time it saves. Well, it turns out that video is actually really long. Now, I've included it, and you can find it under the Heavy Resume account, but I think most people don't want to sit through and watch that unless they have something very specific they want to see, like a specific background. If you're a software engineer, you might want to take a look at it. If you're a decision maker, you might want to understand the limitations of AI better, and you might want to look at it for that reason. For everyone else, you probably don't want to watch me work for 40 minutes. So this video is going to cut straight to like the point, and it's going to end with my learnings from going through this, and hopefully you enjoy it. Yesterday, I created a pull request, which is how software engineers suggest changes to code, and got some feedback from the maintainers. Basically, the feature I've been working on was adding a NoScript tag to these interactive web pages. I got some feedback on it, and that feedback says, rather than adding a parameter, which is what I did, that allows this functionality, why not allow someone to just create a function and then they can swap out the function? Rather than arguing with the maintainer, I'm actually going to see if I can use AI to help provide a third opinion, and then we'll just go with whatever it says. Okay, so I've written a prompt for the AI. I told it about the disagreement that we're having, and I'm going to see if Codex can make a decision and just change the code based off of that decision. So now it says it hit an environment quirk with the patch tool. This is rejected. See, I would love to help it. I don't know what's wrong. Oh, wrote a Perl script. Sure. I mean, it is creative for trying to hack its way through. I mean, I probably would have been like, let's just fix what's wrong with the environment. You can see I'm mainly rubber stamping it. I don't even quite know what it's doing. I don't even see the full command. So it's trying to run PyTest, which if I remember correctly, you're supposed to use hatch. So you can quickly see how like the artificial intelligence is missing that sort of context. And so then it kind of just gets in this little narrow scope of trying to solve the problem within like what it's sort of trained to do. And I suspect what's going to happen is a lot of coding practices are going to change so that you essentially have people writing their code in a way that the AI just tends to naturally know how to handle it. I guess lesson learned here is do the arguments outside of Codex. Don't have Codex make the decision because you'll lose it. So you can kind of see how like working with AI on this, you quickly have to start imposing your opinions on it. The more opinionated you are, the more likely you're going to be like, hey, this thing's doing something wrong. If you asked it to generate a picture of, a person riding a unicorn, shooting a bow and arrow, and you have this image in your head about what it should look like, the AI is probably not going to guess that. But if you are not opinionated and you're like, yeah, this technically fits what I was looking for and that's good enough, then you might think AI is fantastic. And I suspect perhaps a lot of people in leadership positions, that's how they're used to seeing things, is that they had to drop their opinions on things because otherwise they were just micromanaging. So then they say AI saves a lot of time because they're used to telling someone what they want, getting something that looks nothing like it, and going, well, good enough. The difference here is that those people are professionals with experience and a lot of learned context about what's around them. And the AI here just isn't at that point. And I'm just going to call out, this is starting to get to the point where I could have written this myself and been close to done. So when people talk about gains with AI, this is starting to turn into a wash. There's also overhead in just getting everything set up for it. So you can sort of understand how someone might have a very sour opinion if they were to spend a bunch of time setting it up and then they go and try it out with something and it's like, I don't know how to change this code very well. And then they're just like, all right, I guess AI still sucks. I do see an advantage to multitasking. So right now, I'm sitting here staring at the screen and I really don't have anything better to do. I could definitely see someone like pulling up their phone and getting on social media, and then when this thing finishes, they're not looking at it. They don't look at it until it's finally done. And this is actually a phenomenon I saw working, other places where it took a long time to like restart the server. So then you'd go pull up your phone and do all that because you had a whole minute to kill. So you have about 10 seconds before someone starts to get into that kind of habit. That's sort of like the developer experience thing that not me personally, but people have measured. And so it's sort of like once things start taking longer than 10 seconds, then you start to lose that focus and everything. Like I guess the question is, why make this a function at all? If it's a function, that makes sense from a callback perspective. Otherwise, it should just be a string. So this is confusing because they don't have the same parameters. So like each one of these things is like operating off of its own different context, and this is not a good way of writing this. Don't create work. So it's sort of like if things are fine with the old pull request and the way it is, like try to like ask for changes. Don't ask for changes that don't need to be there. Because stuff like this can happen, where you start getting into this philosophical way of solving the problem, which then turns into a debate, which then eats up a bunch of time, and it's sort of like it wasn't really necessary. I don't have a laundry list of things that I want to do with this renderer. It just needs to do one thing because it's a common use case for anything that's internet facing. So I'm going to say that I hit my time box that I've allocated to this for making this change. I don't feel very strongly about it. I do feel that it does need to have the no script feature. And this is very common, is that someone requests something and they don't really go through and think through all like the implications of it. My opinion is that trying to make this more reusable overly complicates it and over engineers it. One of the things worth calling out is that when the AI had undone the changes in that branch, it turns out that I wasn't even operating on the correct branch. I didn't realize it. And because I didn't have that visibility into the code, it wasn't as obvious. I would have to have noticed that in the lower left-hand corner that I had switched back to the dev container branch that I had also worked on, but was missing these no script changes that were on the no script branch. So AI had this confusing situation and it just sort of plowed forward through it rather than being like, are you sure you're not on the right branch? Had I worked on the code myself, I would have immediately recognized that the no script changes were missing and I was on the incorrect branch. Alright, so how did AI help us here? Well, when it was given a set of changes, it was able to write tests for those changes, and they weren't terrible. Okay, so where did AI fall short? Well, first, it masked the fact that I was using the wrong branch, resulting in a lot of confusing behavior and changes that might not have been. It was also brute forcing a lot of environment issues and tried to run tests its own way rather than trying to do it the correct way. And this resulted in me waiting a lot of time and also it burning through a lot of tokens. Finally, which was supposed to be the central experiment of this whole thing, I don't really trust that it did any reasoning, and it just seemed like it looked at our diverging opinions and suggested what I would call a compromise. So based on what we saw today, is AI taking your job? So I'm highly skeptical that AI is going to be trained to abandon work that no longer seems like a good idea. That seems like a very, very large surface area to try to solve, and so I don't see that being automated. I guess in fairness, a lot of existing software engineers have the same problem. They don't want to throw away their work. I also needed to babysit the test changes. It kept on coming up short when it came to tests. Finally, a pattern I'm starting to see is that it kind of struggles with names. In particular, like when it's doing refactors on its own code, it seems to be hesitant to rename things. So it's sort of like it can't tell the difference between renaming something that is brand new and is perfectly okay to rename, and renaming something that's been around for a while and is probably a little more dangerous to rename. Perhaps one way of phrasing it is that its behavior seems a little time blind.